Hello, in this blog I'll be giving a video walkthrough of how to use the two major new features in the recently released Payara 4.1.151, namely the new Hazelcast integration and JBatch extensions. Written documentation on how to use these can be found on the Payara GitHub wiki, so if you want to read along as I go through this tutorial, go to www.github.com/Payara with a capital P. From here, click on the wiki link on the right, navigate to the documentation root page, and then select the appropriate section that you want to read under Payara 4.1.151. With that sorted, let's start off with Hazelcast. Hazelcast, as they succinctly state on their website, is an in-memory data grid and is used in a Payara server as a clustered web session store, as well as the provider of JSR 107, Jcache. To get to the Hazelcast configuration page, go to the Payara server admin console at localhost 4848. Once there, select the server instance or cluster that you want to configure Hazelcast for, and then select the Hazelcast tab. On this page, you can enable Hazelcast by checking this box, decide whether or not to automatically restart Hazelcast to apply changes with this box, and configure the other options to your needs by entering values into these fields. When done, click the Save button in the top right to save and apply your configuration. Next, let's cover how to use Hazelcast for the web and EJB container persistence. Expand the configuration menu of the appropriate cluster config and select Availability Service. To enable it for the web container, head to the Web Container Availability tab, select Hazelcast from the Persistence Type drop-down menu, and save the changes. The process to set Hazelcast as the persistence provider for the EJB container is much the same. Navigate to the EJB Container Availability tab, select Hazelcast from the HA Persistence Type menu, and save your changes. Do note that Hazelcast will actually have to be enabled for this persistence to work for either container. We don't currently have any checks in place to validate whether Hazelcast is enabled before allowing you to set it as the persistence provider, so it is possible to set Hazelcast as the persistence provider even if it isn't enabled, which obviously won't work in practice. With those basics covered, let's turn our attention towards JBatch. To configure JBatch, click on the cluster or instance you wish to configure and select the Batch tab. This page is where you'll find the two pre-existing configuration options from Glassfish, as well as the additions we've made in Payara, namely the schema name, table prefix, and table suffix options. To use the MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, and DB2 persistence managers with JBatch, you just have to create a JDBC connection pool and JDBC resource as you normally would, though selecting the appropriate database driver from the list. You can then select the JDBC resource as the data source JBatch will use on the JBatch configuration page here. It's worth mentioning here that this version of Payara server now allows you to specify a blank schema name. Doing so will use a default schema name dependent on the type of persistence manager being used. For Oracle, DB2, PostgreSQL, and Derby, this will use the username property of the connection pool associated with the JDBC resource. For a MySQL persistence manager, the schema name will be test, due to MySQL lacking the concept of a schema in the same sense as the others. Do note though that you specifically have to specify the schema name is blank. As you can see here, it defaults to app. And that about wraps this blog up. I hope you find it helpful.